Good afternoon. My name is Linda Crump, and on behalf of the Asala Education Committee, I'd like to welcome you to today's AACRC and Asala Kwanzaa Community Celebration. I'd like to turn the program over to Erin Clay for a short introduction.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Erin Clay. I'm the manager here at the Betty J. Johnson North Sarasota Library, and I'm just really pleased to welcome you all to the program tonight. And a huge thank you to Lois Wilkins and the AACRC, as well as the Asala organization, for helping to put this together in what is still somewhat unusual times, just figuring out how to bring us together and celebrate Kwanzaa. It's really something that's come to mean a lot to me working here over the years. I think a lot of the themes, such as culture and family and community, really resonate with what we do here at the library. And I'm always just really excited to be a part of it. So thank you to everyone. And I'm going to hand it over now to Lauren David, an intern with Asala.
Hi guys. So I just wanted to thank you guys for coming to our 7th annual Kwanzaa program. This is our 2nd virtual Kwanzaa program. As Erin mentioned, my name is Lauren David and I work as the Asala Education Committee intern. And so I just wanted to extend a warm Habari Gani to all of you. And we're really excited for you to see this program that we've put together. And I also wanted to note that following the program, we'll have an interview with Eric Crump. He's the author of many of our poems, our selected poems that you'll see read, and he's also the son of Linda and Jean Crump. So we're super excited to have an interview with him. And if you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to direct them to the chat and Linda will be monitoring there. All right, let's get started. Sound is here. Awesome.
Greetings. I'm Linda Crump, co-chair, along with my spouse, Jean Crump, of the Education Committee of the Asala, the African American Life and History organization. We sponsor Beyond Black History Month. We're partnering today with the African American Cultural Resource Center in its annual tradition of a community Kwanzaa celebration. The Betty J. Johnson Friends Board of the North Sarasota Public Library Committee and Managing Director of the AACRC is Lois B. Wilkins. We are pleased to have you share in the 2nd virtual Kwanzaa community celebration. A little background before we begin. Habari Gani, what's the good news? This greeting is used during Kwanzaa and is in Swahili. Swahili is a Pan-African language, and it is chosen to reflect African Americans' commitment to the whole of Africa, the African culture, rather than to a specific ethnic or a national group. The greetings are reinforced awareness of the commitment of the 7 principles. It is Habari Gani, and the answer one gives is different for each of the Kwanzaa Day's principles. For example, the first day we celebrate Umoja, which means unity. So when I say Habari Gani, you answer Umoja. Very good. You'll also hear, after many of the wonderful presentations, people saying Ashe, Ashe. And you'll wonder, why are they saying that? It's an interesting word because if you translate it, it means so be it, may it be so, or so shall it be. But it's like an affirmation to say we agree, we're proud, we want to do this. So again, Habarigani. Thank you.
In order for our first-time guests and returning family members to engage in this celebration together, we're taking a moment to answer frequently asked questions so you can practice and participate in today's celebration. I am Marion Black Ruffin, Minnesota Branch Corresponding Secretary for ASALA, and my spouse, Paul Ruffin, and we are members of the Friends Board of BJJNSPL. Together, we would like to start with 5 frequently asked questions. Paul's going to start off.
And the first question is, who established Kwanzaa? When? Answer, it was established by Maulana Karinga in 1966. Question number 2, when is Kwanzaa celebrated? Answer, 26th of December to the 1st of January.
Question number 3, what does Kwanzaa mean? Anybody want to answer?
First fruits.
Good. The word Kwanzaa means first fruits of the harvest. Question 4, what is the significance of the number 7?
7 candles.
Good.
7 principles.
7 principles.
7 days of celebration.
Yes. And Kwanzaa has 7 letters. The 7 principles are unity, self-determination, responsibility, and collective work, purpose, cooperative economics, creativity, and faith. Primary symbols are crops, mat, candle holder, horn, unity cup, gifts, and 7 candles. 7 days of celebration. Unrelated, but in 2016, Kwanzaa was celebrated for the 50th year. Question 5. You want to ask it?
What are the 3 colors of Kwanzaa? Answer, the 3 colors reflect the Pan-African movement of unity. Oh.
Red, black, and green.
Right.
Red, black, green, thank you.
The colors are green stands for rich greenery and hope of Africa. Black represents this people, and red represents the noble blood of all ancestors of Africa, African people and their struggle that unites them together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ashe.
Habarigani, what's the good news?
The good news is that you and your ministry family are invited to celebrate diversity by incorporating Kwanzaa and African American celebration into your yearly special events calendar.
The good news is that Kwanzaa affords you a wonderful opportunity for the spiritual, communion, and community outreach. As a celebration, Kwanzaa is festive, educational, inspirational, healing, and just plain fun.
The good news is that Kwanzaa is a great way for your church family to experience a dynamic African American celebration that can be enjoyed by people of all races, ethnic, and socioeconomic backgrounds.
The good news is that Kwanzaa beautifully reflects unity principles and is therefore a perfect celebration to be hosted by a unity church. In fact, the first of 7 Kwanzaa principles is umoja, which means unity.
The good news is that everything you need to know about creating a Kwanzaa celebration is contained, including about Kwanzaa, a sample order of service, how to plan a Kwanzaa celebration, the Karamu menu, resources for creating Kwanzaa, a Kwanzaa glossary and bibliography. Please enjoy your time with us today. Habarigani.
So I am so excited to present to you guys Mr. Macio for Call the People Together Drum Call. those of you who don't know, Mr. Maceo has been participating in this Kwanzaa celebration for years. So we thank you for your continuous support and talent. As we'll learn later, one of the key principles of Kwanzaa is unity. So here's a warm welcome from Ms. Keisha Matthews and her students at Exceptional Tutoring.
They're not real. Three. One. I feel this is so pale. Happy Kwanzaa.
Hello, my name is Lauren David and I'm the Asala Education Committee intern. I would like to begin by extending a warm welcome or Habari Gani to all of you. We're so grateful that you've taken the time to come and celebrate with us virtually. I would like to take this time to thank Jean and Linda Crump, who I've worked with under for the past 3 months to curate previous Beyond Black History programs. You can check those out on our Asala Minnesota website. I would also like to thank Lois Wilkins, Chair of the African American Cultural Resource Center, for orchestrating this event today. We have an informative and dynamic program in store for you with special selections of songs, poems, and essays from members of our local community. Kwanzaa is an important time that reminds us that we are rich in the love of family, supportive community, the power of our unity, and the friendship of people like each of you. So with that being said, I hope you enjoy the program. We will now proceed with the Summoning of Ancestors by Lois Wilkins.
Good afternoon, Ms. Harper. Thank you so very much for all you have given to us and do for us. We appreciate you, and I hope that you will see that today there will be children involved with the celebration. There will be students from New College, and there will be students from Booker High. There will be Miss Keisha Matthews tutoring students that participated in front of the ARC and actually came into the ARC and learned about the table. We have prepared gifts on behalf of AACRC. We have community representatives from the Asala, as well as our advisory board from the Betty J. Johnson North Sarasota Public Library Friends Board. And we have the staff of the library participating also today. So with that knowledge, I'd like to ask your permission if we can proceed with the program today.
Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction about all of the people who are taking part with us. As an elder from our community, you have my permission to begin, and I thank you.
Thank you.
Ashe, thank you so much to Lois and Ms. Lavette Harper. Now we will have the libation by David Wilkins and Mohammed Zarisky.
A libation statement called the Tamshi La Tobiko is recited, during which time the water from the communal cup, the Kikomba Cha Umoja, is poured in 4 directions: north, south, east, and west. In memory of loved ones who have passed away, the cup is then passed among the group. The Kwanzaa libation statement, Tamshi La Tobiko. For the motherland, cradle of civilization. For the ancestors and their indomitable spirit. And here's my trusted associate, Mr. Zabriskie. Got it? Okay. Got it. For the elders from whom we can learn much. Ashe. For our youth who represent the promise of tomorrow. Ashe. For our people, the original people. Ashe. For our struggle and in remembrance of those who have struggled on our behalf. Ashe. For Umoja, the principle of unity, which should guide us in all that we do. Ashe. For the Creator who provides all things, great and small. Ashe. Thank you.
Ashe. The power of music and sense of community it fosters should never be underestimated. As the saying goes, there's a song for everything. James Kermel will now inform us of the rich history of Kwanzaa.
Barigani. In the aftermath of the 1965 riot in Watts, a predominantly African-American community in Los Angeles, California, Dr. Malana Karanga wanted to do something to uplift the spirit in the African-American community. Dr. Karanga, an Africana Studies professor at California State University, decided to establish an African-American holiday to instill a sense of pride in the African-American community. He wanted to create a time and space to focus on our African heritage, to remember our ancestors, to reflect on our past, present, and future, and to be mindful of the importance of family and community. Dr. Karanga decided to model his new holiday after the harvest festivals celebrated by various tribes, African tribes. These harvest festivals varied from tribe to tribe. But what they had in common was that they all were several days, and that they were recognized the contributions of each and every member of the tribe in producing the harvest. Dr. Karanga named the new holiday Kwanzaa, from the Swahili meaning Mutunda, the Swahili phrase I should say, Mutunda ya Kwanzaa, meaning first fruits. The initial Kwanzaa celebration, a 7-day event, was held on December 26, 1966 through January 1st, 2007. This year we celebrate the 55th anniversary of Kwanzaa. Ashe.
Thank you, James. If we don't understand where we're coming from, it's monumentally harder to understand where we're going. You're all in for a treat, as this is one of my favorite portions of the program. We'll now hear from Ms. Lavette Harper on why we celebrate Kwanzaa.
Why we celebrate Kwanzaa. The African American Cultural Resource Center presents a Kwanzaa program each year to celebrate African American accomplishments and culture. We celebrate Kwanzaa because it is the only holiday that African Americans have that is strictly ours. We celebrate Kwanzaa also because we need an opportunity to, number one, to reflect on our past. We learn or review contributions that many African Americans have made, including people like President Barack Obama and Nelson Mandela and Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, or hundreds of other Black people. We reflect on our past because we need an opportunity to study and learn about people who may have passed on. And we celebrate Kwanzaa because we need an opportunity to establish a connection to Africa. Africa is our homeland, about which there is so much to be proud. I know this after visiting about 8 African countries. Africa is the most diverse continent in the world. Most of the citizens are people of color. However, there are people in Africa of all colors, from what we call vanilla ice cream color to chocolate pudding. Isn't that delicious? Africa is often called the mother continent because scientists say it is the one from which all other continents broke off, and the one that has the most of everything. The most spoken languages, the longest river, the Nile, the biggest desert, that is the Sahara, the most wild animals like elephants and zebras. It is the place where the oldest human being who ever lived has been found by 2 anthropologists named the Leakeys. They called these remains Lucy. This was our mother for all of us, and those remains were found in East Africa. Africa is where the oldest art on cave walls has been found not too long ago in South Africa. It is the place where the largest sculptures of kings and queens still stand after thousands of years. And there's just so much more to be proud of in our homeland. Kwanzaa is our holiday when we are encouraged to study this magnificent history of our homeland and make a connection to this continent and be proud. And then number 3, Kwanzaa is celebrated to help us learn good rules for getting along in our families and our communities. These rules, which the founder called principles, were invented in 1966 by the college professor and head of an organization called the US. He lived and worked in Los Angeles, California. His name is Dr. Maulana, we call him Ron, Maulana Karenga. Other speakers at our AACRC program today will tell you more about Dr. Karenga, his ideas and values, as well as the names he gave to his principles or rules, like names like this interesting sounding Nguzo Saba, and other names in Kiswahili language we can learn. That language is spoken by millions of Africans in East Africa, not by only one tribe or one country. It is easy for us to learn some of the words in this celebration. Words like umoja and kujichagulia. That is another reason why I love this beautiful holiday. It's an opportunity to learn a new language. Kwanzaa is what we call a cultural celebration, not a religious holiday. This holiday can be celebrated by people of all religions and beliefs, and those who have no religion as well. We all can come together, learn our history, learn to love ourselves and each other, as well as build strong families and strong communities. I hope you will celebrate Kwanzaa each year and love this beautiful holiday like I do. Thank you very much.
As always, thank you, Ms. Harper, for your dedication and work to this mission to share as much information as we can. We'll now hear from Glenda Williams on the symbols and principles of Kwanzaa.
Faragani.
We're going to start with the 7 symbols of Kwanzaa. And you'll see that we have the 7 symbols are represented by different things that are on the table here. The first symbol is the crops, also known as mazao. These are symbols of the African harvest celebrations and of the rewards of productive and collective labor. The next symbol is the mat, also known as nkita, which is here a woven mat made by hand. And it is also known as the basis for all of the symbols because the symbols sit on the basis. And as we know, you probably learned in church at some point, that we must have a strong foundation. That is nkita. Kanara is the candle holder. It is a symbol of our roots, our parent people, continental Africans. Muhindi, the corn. This is a symbol of our children and of the future which they embody. As you might saw the 7 candles. Now those seven candles each have a meaning. The first red candle is a candle of unity. The second candle is the candle of self-determination. The third candle is the candle for collective work. The black candle in the middle is for cooperative economics. One thing in our community is that if we have cooperative economics, then we will always be successful. The first green, which would be the furthest from being next to the black candle, is for Nia, also known as purpose. The second green candle is for creativity. And I think it's very important for us to be creative. Because if someone has done something, I don't think it matters that much how many times it's done after that. But when somebody does something that no one else has ever done, it has a much more significant meaning, and it's much more important. So that's why we hear people say sometimes it's not as important for a child to learn as it is for them to create. Okay, Gikombe Chomoja, which is the Unity Cup. The Unity Cup is symbolic of the foundation principle and practice of unity, which makes all else possible. And the next we have books and we have gifts. Zawadi, the gifts. These are symbolic of the labor and love of parents and the commitments made and kept by the children. So those gifts are for the children predominantly. Those are the 7 symbols of Kwanzaa. Now the 7 principles of Kwanzaa is a little bit different. Umoja means unity, to strive for and to maintain unity in the family, community, nation, and race. So it's important for us to embrace unity and to encourage unity. Self-determination, to determine and name ourselves as well as to create and speak for ourselves. Let's not let anyone else speak for us. We know who we are better than anyone. And when we speak for ourselves, it really makes a difference. Ujima, collective work and responsibility, to build and maintain our community together and make our brothers and sisters' problems our problems and to solve them together. This is a way for us to build not only faith but trust, and also to strengthen our community. Cooperative economics. We've heard those words before. To build and maintain our own stores, shops, and other businesses, and to profit from them. Nia, purpose. To make our collective vocation the building and development of our community in order to restore our people to their traditional greatness. And that's an issue that we identify in various communities, where we need to identify what our purpose is and work towards that. Kaumba, creativity. Again, I think it's more important for us to be creative than to learn from what someone else has done. Because when we're creative, we invent things, we discover things that have never been invented or discovered before. And that means that we grow. Imani. Do you know what Imani means? Faith. Faith, exactly. To believe with all our hearts in our people, our parents, our teachers, our leaders, and the righteousness and victory of our struggle. We need to know that our struggle is righteous and that we can be victorious if we believe in Amani. So thank you very much.
Ashe. Anytime I hear community mentioned in discussion, it reminds me of the African proverb, If you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. This message is very timely in my opinion as we prepare to hear some cultural presentations from our community. First, we will have a selection from Priscilla Crummell, For My People by Margaret Walker.
I'm very happy to be here. I'm going to do a poem by Margaret Walker, who wrote books. You might have read her book Jubilee, which came out in the 60s and was excellent. It might have been made into a movie. For my people. For my people everywhere, singing their slave songs repeatedly, their dirges, their ditties, and their blues and jubilees. Praying their prayers nightly to an unknown God, bending their knees humbly to an unseen power. For my people lending their strength to the years, to the gone years, to the now years, and the maybe years, washing, ironing, cooking, scrubbing, sewing, mending, hoeing, plowing, digging, planting, pruning, patching, dragging along, never gaining, never reaping, never knowing, and never understanding. For my playmates in the clay and dust and sand of Florida backyards, playing baptizing and preaching and doctor and jail and soldier and school and mama and cooking and playhouse and concert and store and hair and Miss Chumbi and company. For the cramped, bewildered years we went to school to learn, to know the reasons why and the answers to, the people who and the places where, and the days when, in memory of the bitter hours when we discovered we were black and poor and different, and nobody cared and nobody wondered and nobody understood. For the boys and girls who grew in spite of these things to be man and woman, to laugh and dance and sing and play and drink their wine and religion and success, to marry their playmates and bear children, and then die of consumption and anemia and lynching. For my people, standing, staring, trying to fashion a better way from confusion, from hypocrisy and misunderstanding, trying to fashion a world that will hold all the people, all the faces, all the Adams and Eves, and their countless generations. Let a new earth rise. Let another world be born. Let a second generation full of courage issue forth. Let a people loving freedom and a strength of final clenching be the pulsing in our spirit and our blood. Let our people now rise and shine. I went to see Nikki Giovanni, thank you, at Rider College in Lawrence, New Jersey, where we used to live. I guess that was over 50 years ago. We had been listening to her as she did, she had done her first album, I believe it was, of poems with the New York Community Choir in background, singing gospel while she did her poems. And one of the poems she did was called Ego Tripping. There may be a reason why. I was born in the Congo. I walked to the Fertile Crescent and built the Sphinx. I designed a pyramid so tough that a star that only glows every 100 years falls into the center, giving divine, perfect light. I am bad. I sat on the throne drinking nectar with Allah. I got hot and sent an ice age to Europe to cool my thirst. My youngest daughter is Nefertiti. The tears from my birth pains created the Nile. I am a beautiful woman. I gazed on the forest and burned out the Sahara Desert. With a packet of goat's meat and a change of clothes, I crossed it in 2 hours. I am a gazelle, so swift, you can't catch me. For birthday present, when he was 3, I gave my son Hannibal an elephant. He gave me Rome for Mother's Day. My son Noah built New Ark, and I stood proudly at the helm as we sailed on a soft summer day. I turned myself into myself and was Jesus. Man intoned my loving name. All praises, I am the one who would sing. I sewed diamonds in my backyard. My bowels delivered uranium. The filings from my fingernails are semi-precious jewels. On a trip north, I caught a cold and blew my nose, giving oil to the Arab world. I am so hip, even my errors are correct. I sailed west to reach east and had to round off the earth as I went. The hair from my head thinned and gold was laid across 3 continents. I am so perfect, so divine, so ethereal, so surreal, I cannot be comprehended except by my permission. I mean, I can fly like a bird in the sky.
Wow, Ashe. Next, we will have the Unbroken Circle selection, and it will be read by Gianna Glover.
The Unbroken Circle by Eric E. Crump. A circle of leaders around the council of fire, a ring of bushmen discussing tribal matters, the Unbroken Circle. Old becomes new, new becomes old, beginning everywhere, ending nowhere, the Unbroken Circle. Like ears of corn, each ear a product, each ear a producer, perpetual life. Old teaches new, new teaches old. The Unbroken Circle, symmetry, harmony, unity, infinity, time, the Unbroken Circle.
Thank you, Gianna. Next, we'll have 2 selections by Azia Baker, Power to the People by Eric Crump, and Red, Green, and Black by Eric Crump.
Red, Green, Black by Eric E. Crump. My gray-green eyes are streaked with red rivulets, bloodshot from tears, and you cannot understand why I cry. I cry from the blood-red images that haunt my memory and consume my consciousness and adhere to my being. I cry from the blood-curdling screams of running from police dogs and the midnight riders and the inescapable self. I cry from the blood-borne scar that turns my life to death and turns my death to life. And you cannot understand, I am consigned to my fate and my tears. It is not the sag of my pants. It is not the village of my birth. It is not the memory. It is not the money in my pocket. It is not the Africa around my neck. These are superficial. It is my brown black of my skin and what it has meant. It is the gray green of my eye and what it has seen. It is the blood red of my mind and what it has known. And you cannot understand. You cannot walk in my brown black skin. You cannot look through my gray green eyes. You cannot live with my blood red mind, and you never will. You never will. You never will. But you will never know my pride and my strength and my vitality and my blackness. Born across the blue sea from the land of my people, this is who I must be. This is where I come from. This is home. And you cannot understand. You will never understand. How can I take my black fist, worn and grooved with the struggle past, and wipe away the blood-red tears from my gray green eyes? Power to the People by Eric E. Clark. You can hear it in the songs kids sing, if you're white, you're right. In the things people say, if you're yellow, you're mellow. In the way people act, if you're red, go ahead. The powers that be denied. If you're brown, stick around. They say we're the United States of America. If you're black, get back. But we're never united. If you're white, you're right. And people in this country know it. If you're yellow, you're mellow. We are divided like the fingers on a hand. If you're red, go ahead. 5 slim, thin fingers. If you're brown, stick around. But when you combine those 5 into one, if you're black, get back. What do you get?
Ashe, thank you so much. Words have the power to change lives. Let's not forget that. There's not only power in our words, but in our bodies and movements, as Dr. Queen Zaversky is preparing to show us with an African dance selection.
I have a call and response song that I want to start with. Really easy, because we want to end this in a celebratory way, right? Kwanzaa is a time for us to celebrate community and family and our culture and our history. And so we want to do that collectively here. So when I say 7 days of Kwanzaa, I want everyone in the audience to say Happy Kwanzaa, eh? And then I'll say 7 days of Kwanzaa, and you'll say Happy Kwanzaa, oh. Okay? Simple.
so very much for joining us today for our Kwanzaa celebration. The education that they shared with us, the tidbits of joy that they caused our hearts to know was all experienced as we came together via Zoom to experience Kwanzaa together. Harambe, yes, coming together. As I want to thank all of the participants on the program, you made it possible. Without you, we could not have done it at all. So thank you so much, every participant. We're thanking the Friends of the North Sarasota Public Library. The Betty J. Johnson North Sarasota Public Library. We are thanking Asala for your contributions. You are invaluable to us, as well as the AACRC and the chair of the AACRC, Ms. Lois Wilkins. Thank you so much for doing what you have done to make this program what it is. We also want to thank the staff of the Betty J. Johnson North Sarasota Public Library. Erin, Lindsay, Crystal, thank you. Your contributions helped to pull together all of the parts that it took for this history to come forth. Maceo, thank you for drumming us right on in there. And for Linda and Jean Crump, thank you for Beyond Black History Month and the Education Committee. Yes, beyond Black History Month, beyond February, we are doing Black History Month 24/7, 7 days a week, 12 months out of the year. Thank you, Linda and Jean, for everything that you're doing. Lauren, yes, you did an awesome job emceeing this program tonight. Thank you again, because it takes all of us. Elaine, thank you. Miss Harper, thank you. Thank you, everybody. You know, I get in trouble when I start calling names. New College, thank you. Thank you for being a very vital part of this celebration. Miss Marsha Smith, could we do it without you? No. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And I want you to know, the Betty J. Johnson North Sarasota Public Library is here for you. So make sure you come by and spend a little bit more time with us. We love you and we appreciate you one by one. Thank you.
Ashe.
Hello. I am Lynetta Gaines, and it is my joy to end our Kwanzaa ceremony, as we traditionally do, with affirming 7 Harambes. Harambe means let's all pull together. And so by affirming Harambe 7 times, we are affirming our intention, our willingness to embrace the Nguzo Saba, the 7 principles of Kwanzaa, to demonstrate them in our daily lives. I'd like to point out before I begin that the art behind me is by a Sala artist, Dr. Barbara Mask. Okay, ready for our Harambes? 7 times. Here we go. Harambe, 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 Harambe.
Awesome. So I wanted to thank all of you guys for coming out and watching our 2nd annual virtual Kwanzaa program. I'm so appreciative of the wealth of knowledge that was shared in the program today, and obviously the willingness of the local community to prioritize this celebration. And I also wanted to take the time to say a special thank you to Eric Crump, if he's on the line. Eric, can you show your face and say hi?
Everybody.
Eric is the author of a few of the poems that were read for this. Is that me? It
You're
is
fine.
We got you.
Yeah. We're playing another video. Lovely. Okay. The author of a few of the poems that were read today. And so we just want to thank you so much for your selections. And so for those of you who have time and want to stick around, we're actually going to play an interview right now that we were able to do with Eric. And for those of you that have to leave us, we just want to thank you for coming out. So feel free to stick around if you like.
Before you start that, this is Linda Crump. And you know, Lois didn't get to say much. And she really is the mastermind behind all of this. So Lois, if you want to say anything, please pipe in and say something, because we love what you're doing for the community.
Well, thank you very much. And I am listening. I'm just so tremendously proud of all of you who participated in this year's program. Lauren, you are stellar in doing your work, and I appreciate that. I also want to just take time to thank you to the First Congregation United Church of Christ. Many of them are on the line today. Thank you for coming out and celebrating with us. And I also want to tell you that we invited Eric Crump, the poet. He happens to be the son of Linda and Jean Crump. And one evening, Lauren and I and Linda contacted him and said, you know, can we just have 10, 15 minutes of your time to hear about, you wrote these poems when you were a high schooler. So we have a friend in our bubble, Ray Taylor. Ray, raise your hand, please. That Ray is also a poet. And it's a great opportunity for you to meet. But if you can stay for about 10 or 15 more minutes, if you can, let's listen to Eric as he talks a little bit about his journey. Thank you all.
Okay. So we wanted to know basically just what motivated you to write 2 books of poems. Was it, you know, a school assignment that kind of snowballed into something, a passion, or was it just you sat down pen to paper and ever since then, you know, it spiraled again into a passion? How did we get here?
So I was trying to, I had a feeling you would ask me this question, and I was trying to pinpoint because there were 2 things that happened around the same time, but I can't really recall exactly what order it was all these years later. But I'm this, you know, like many of your students, this is, you're at that kind of period in school where you're experimenting with different kinds of writing. So we had a poetry unit and we were assigned to write poems as well. But I believe before that happened, the summer before we had that poetry assignment, which I want to say was 10th grade, I actually found this book, which I will, you know, bring as well to the presentation on Thursday, but a book of American Negro poetry, an anthology of poetry that I actually found on my grandfather's wall at the house in Teller Avenue, where my dad and his brothers grew up with, you know, my grandma and grandpa. The living room has a big, you know, in-seated bookcase that takes up the entire wall and all these books in there. And I'd always loved reading, I'd always loved writing, I'd always loved books. I hadn't really done very much poetry, but I just found this book in there, which I believe one of either my dad or one of my uncles might have
Lauren,
stolen
I think
from the
the
New York
sound
City
went
Public
out.
Library because it still has the cards inside there and they never gave it back. But it was.
Let's rewind it.
It was on.
It was on. Okay.
As they called it, but Black poetry from way back to the Phyllis Wheatley era, all the way up until I think this was published in the early 70s. So it's got some of the, you know, Amiri Baraka and Nikki Giovanni, the Harlem Renaissance poets and the 60s poets, the Black Arts Movements poets. And it kind of shows you a bunch of different types of poetry throughout the years as people have done different types of work. But it was just an amazing book to just pour through and find different ways that people throughout the years had talked about opening their soul up and you know, putting stuff down on paper. And it really kind of spoke to me. And then when we had that poetry unit in school, I kind of went back to this and used, you know, I think all artists start from another place of the other artistry that's inspired them. And so it's like, you know, how can I probe my thoughts to come up with something similar to what County Collingwood said, or you know, this something happened in school, something happened in the news that makes you think, and how does that impact you emotionally, and how can I, you know, do a draft of that and then look at how somebody else wrote it and say, well, let's play with the words, let's find. So a lot of this is poetry really is wordplay. And so I had always kind of been, you know, attracted to words before this, but this was, how can you take a thought and pare it down to the smallest iteration of it, and all that's really left is just emotion. And that's where I was trying to go.
Wow.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And so with that being said, have you ever felt like you encountered a time where you experienced maybe sorry guys, I'm gonna reshare just to make sure.
Lauren, I think most of us could hear that.
You could
And
hear it.
yes, if you want to make Eric say anything, he is on the chat.
Oh, I definitely
So you could just have him talk if you wanted to.
Yeah, Eric, we would love to hear from you while I sort this out. So sorry.
Where do you want to go? What questions does anybody have? I open the floor.
Well, Eric, why don't you go ahead and start where you were talking about the impetus of where you started, how you began this journey. I think you were beginning to talk about your school and that kind of thing. So just take it from there.
So I think looking back, I'm fortunate that I really did have some great, you know, teachers, some great high school teachers who, you know, we started with a poetry unit and it was kind of the regimented, here's classical styles of poetry, here's how you write a sonnet, here's how you write a haiku, here's how you do that. And so you start with the form and the structure, right? But they let me go on to any content that I wanted to. And as a young Black man in Lincoln, Nebraska, surrounded by not very many Black people, you know, at that point, my Blackness was very important to me. That was the kind of the beginning of you're finding your voice as a writer, you're finding your voice as a speaker, you're finding your voice as a person, and then you're finding your voice as a Black person in a largely white world. And so all of my early poems were about the Black experience, my version of the Black experience as a Nebraskan, my version of the Black experience as someone who is the child of New Yorkers. And so, you know, I had both Nebraska and New York in my upbringing a lot, and the meccas of, you know, Harlem and the Bronx and all the Black and brown people who were there. And so I was playing with that content, but then learning how to become an artist, how to become a craftsperson. And then I would, like I said, in the eventual, you know, interview, if we end up playing the rest of it, the thing that I'm very grateful for is some of my early teachers said, okay, now you've done this and you've done that kind of poetry, but be more experimental, do other kinds of poetry. Don't confine yourself just to this style, but look at other poets, look at the things that they've done, look at the free form poetry. You don't have to rhyme on every single thing. You don't have to have a form and a structure for every single thing. But if you do that, the challenge is if you're going to write a piece that does not have a boundary, that does not have a form, it's got to be even more impactful, because you're not going to get any of the bonus points for making a nice rhyme couplet. It has to be something that's really going to be raw and something that's really going to speak to somebody on some level. So that was the other half of the challenge. I was fortunate to have teachers who said you can experiment and do stuff, but make it worthwhile, make it something that has an impact for you and for anybody else who wants to read it.
That's wonderful. Priscilla Crumble and also Ray Taylor are our resident poets and orators, and I wonder if they have any questions or comments for you.
You can open up. Yeah. Are we on?
Mhm.
I just want to say that I am totally blown away by someone so young. I'm 81 years old, and the depth that he can bring out in his writing was just fantastic. He's much more structured than I am, and he has studied much more than I have. Mine just comes straight from the heart. Some people say God put stuff into my head, and I just put it on paper and just express it. But there, like he said, there are all different kinds of expressing yourself in poetry, and you should just do your own thing. God bless you, young man.
Honestly, I think I'm very similar. A lot of this stuff, is you get like one idea, one word that pops in your head from somewhere, or maybe a line or something. And a lot of my poetry just grew from there. So I don't necessarily always know where it comes from. It just comes. I said, I've never been a poet who did a whole lot of refining. Obviously you want to show your work to people and say, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? But most of them really came out the way they came out. Some of them came out in one night. Some of them came out in chunks and pieces over 5 years. But when they come out the way they come out, I usually end up leaving them the way that they are. So it's, like you said, wherever that inspiration is, it's coming from inside you. You don't even really understand it most of the time.
Eric, could you speak about Red, Green, Black and your thoughts behind that?
Sure. So I think the point where I wrote Red, Green, Black, I want to say is right around the end of high school, start of college. And like I said, at this point, I was, I considered myself a poet. Like it was kind of becoming a larger part of my identity, as opposed to just something where you write some things here and there for school. It was like, I really like this. And I really like the challenge of trying to create, visual art through words. And the period that I was in at that point was trying to be as visual as possible with poetry. So I think Red, Green, Black is one of several, poems that are all around that era of clustered things that I did, where I wanted to have really vivid color imagery and where you see the words through the page. That was kind of the goal there with that piece. And so that plus a lot of repetition. I think I was really, that period of my poetry writing is I want to drive points home through the work by repeating stanzas and repeating patterns and repeating phrases. And so you kind of see these chunks of threes, these 3 lines and these 3 lines and these 3 lines with the red and the green and the black. And so Kwanzaa and Afrocentrism and vivid imagery and raw emotion was kind of where I was attempting to go with the Red, Green, Black piece.
Priscilla, did you have some words?
Well, I would like to say I'm very impressed, Eric. What I'm thinking of as coming from an educator background is that you are setting such an example and opening the doors for our young people, who when young people hear what you have done and your clarity, it opens the door for them to say, well, maybe I can do that too.
Yeah.
I don't call myself a poet, and I think I probably haven't read much in the way for Kwanzaa. I've never read one of my own pieces, but mine my kind of poetry. It comes out of necessity when I'm looking for something. I can't find what I want, so I just try to do it. So, but it takes courage. I'm kind of shy about bringing it out to public because I don't consider myself along your lines, Eric. Just something that I do out of necessity sometimes.
Yeah.
That's
Well, I
fine.
mean, yeah, I would say, especially like you said, towards the young people, the biggest thing is you're always going to be your own worst critic, right? As we're going through years later, I'm going back right now and looking through a lot of these poems, and these are things that I wrote, almost 30 years ago at this point. And many of them are, I don't really like them as much as other people do. Like if you asked me to pick the 2 or 3 poems I would have read, it might have been completely other ones because this is what speaks to me now. And at that point, I'm like, I feel like that was a little more rudimentary. So you judge yourself pretty harshly. But the advice that I would give to young poets is you have to put yourself out there. Once you've written something, share it with other people. Get on stage and perform it. If you are at a place where there's a venue where they do open mic nights or things like that, like go up there and do it, because everybody else will love it even more than you do, because for them, it's not the imperfect piece where you feel like I should have said that differently, or I didn't quite capture what was in my head. They're just getting it and they're going to receive it and be impacted by it in ways that you're not going to necessarily know. My mom will probably want to chime in with the story, so I'll jump in and say it before she gets a chance to, but she said, you know, years later, we ended up having, my parents for years had invited people into the home to come and stay with us because there's a university that they both work for that was not far from where we live. And so we had different university students who were, you know, like a visiting abroad type of program who would stay with us at the house for a week or for a month or for a semester. So one of the women who came and stayed with us for a while was another poet, an established poet. She had already published pieces before and did books and chapbooks. She kind of helped me learn how to do some of my own self-publishing stuff. But as I was now in the house with another poet, I opened up to her a lot more and shared a lot more of my pieces with her. And that's where my mother found a lot of my love poems that I had never let my mom and dad read before, because those were the ones that are the most, you know, vulnerable, where I'm talking about my affection for another person. And so she was like, I never would have known until Camilla had come in and you guys had these little mini poetry workshops in the dining room table, that you had all these other pieces that were too, you know, too emotional for mom and dad to see. So it's tough. It's tough to open your soul, because that's really what this is. But people will love it. People will respect it. You'll get some feedback that'll make yourself a better poet, but you got to be brave and just say, I wrote something. I want you to see what I wrote and tell me what you think about it.
Eric, talking about being insecure and writing down your feelings, explain your poetry presentation at a poetry reading when you had 2 microphones.
Yeah. So in one of the pieces that was read today, actually, if you see them on the page, poetry is verbal. You want to hear it, but you also want to see it as well as much as you can. And when you see that poem that she was reading earlier today, there's alternating lines, almost as if there's 2 different voices going back and forth inside there. And so by the time I was, you know, writing enough poetry that I felt like I could get on stage and start doing poetry readings, I would go up there with black gloves on, right? And I had my big afro at the time. I could probably get it out at this point, but it's been years. So, but I went up there with my poetry, my afro and my gloves and everything, and I would recite poems. And some of them, instead of one mic, I would put 2 mics on the stage side by side and walk back and forth between them, reading between the 2 different voices that are in the poem itself. And, you know, my advice for that is that the rule of poetry is there are no rules. You can make your piece any way you want to make your piece and perform it any way you want to perform it. And if you really want to make this 2 poems in one, make it 2 poems in one. So I would experiment like that as well.
Eric, we are approaching our conclusion, and all of us have to go on to other meetings and things. But I wanted to find out, is there a poem that you can share with us that you?
Sure.
Oh,
So along the Kwanzaa spirit that we're all in right now, one of my later poems that I'll read for you real quick is called On the Inevitability of Introspection, which occurs while walking to Niani. When they heard he claimed the throne of Songhai, the deposed princesses said, he shall not be, Asikia. So Muhammad Ture became Askia the Great. But who is he to say? It always starts this way. While walking from Niani to Gao, or even Great to Jene, I was tempted to look down upon the streets paved with gold underfoot, but found that I was walking on nothing but faith itself. And the songs sung by passersby and the graduates of the universities who worked in the black soil by the roadside sounded somehow Ethiopian, but it was all Greek to me. It seems that I've lost the way from my home to the ruins of the past, and I've lost sight of what I was looking for. Some say Askia took Niani to prove that his empire was impervious to the past modus operandi. But the journey is much longer than that. I have come from much farther than there. When I left that, then it disappeared into the memory of Mali and Ghana. So here I walk and here I sit in Niani, walk to greet me as I await my coming. Yes, it has always been as such, but it has never really happened. This meeting that I did not know that I was headed towards. This whole and these 2 different sames, halved by time and space, to unite in that black soil, to converse with Zeus, who Homer claimed was favored by the Ethiops, and to see what could not be seen, to look into my hands. Yes, perhaps he shall be.
Ashe.
Thank you.
Okay.
Linda, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, we're going to go ahead and stop that recording, and we wish all of you to have a wonderful holiday season in Kwanzaa. We hope you learned a lot during this celebration. Lois and Lauren, you did a fabulous job. Thank you to the library for all you've done to help this be a great celebration. Ashe.
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 Ashe.